Welcome to the Sounds Podcast and the Sounds of Film radio show, where we explore the intersection of film, music, and storytelling. I'm your host, Tom Needham, and on today's episode, we're thrilled to have a very special guest, Dean Alioto, the visionary writer and director of The Alien Perspective. Known for his pioneering found footage genre with the McPherson Tape and for his cult classic Alien Abduction incident in Lake County, Alioto has spent his career delving into the unexplained and the supernatural. In The Alien Perspective, Alioto takes us on a fascinating journey into the UFO phenomenon, presenting not only credible eyewitness accounts, but also groundbreaking scientific and philosophical insights. With interviews from luminaries like investigative journalist Leslie Kean and philosopher Nick Bostrom, the film offers a bold and unique take on extraterrestrial encounters from the aliens' point of view. Dean, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Tom, thank you. Happy to be here.
Oh, man. So tell me a little bit about how you came up with this concept of doing this film, Alien Perspective.
Sure. I had made this film. It's considered the first found footage film made, and it happened to be about a family that gets abducted by extraterrestrials. And because there had been nothing kind of like it at the time, no one knew that this is a kind of a different narrative in filmmaking. And so when it got distributed, the distributor released it, and a few copies got out to mom and pop video stores, and someone much more clever than me edited off the credits and injected it into the UFO community. So a lieutenant colonel with 40 years intelligence Air Force experience claimed it was authentic, and that pretty much set everything into motion. And I ended up going on national TV to debunk the film. And and then I later on for Paramount TV remade it as UPN's Alien Abduction in Lake County. And so I had this reputation with this genre. And then several years later, the internet pops up and there's all these conspiracy theories and stuff. And so I'm having to continue to debunk, et cetera. And then I get invited to go to Fantastic Fest, Seaches, and a couple UFO fests as well for the anniversary of these found footage films. And so when I went to the UFO conference, I met some very credible people that, I'm interested more as a sci-fi filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hadn't really considered this, even though I've done documentaries, historical documentaries for A&E, Bravo, Discovery, et cetera. I just didn't really consider it. And so when I met these people, I thought, God, there's an interesting documentary here. Except there's been so much done in the UFO space, no pun intended, that I thought, how do I do something that'll be worth people, renting or buying a digital copy of the film? And so I hit on doing the exact opposite of what had already been done, which is basically tell a UFO documentary from the human's perspective and look at it even as a hypothesis from the alien's perspective. And that opened up a shitload. Sorry, I hope I can swear. a crap load of possibilities. And so that set me off on a 7-year journey over 4 countries, and interviewing, as you mentioned, some of the top minds in the world who normally never work in UFO documentaries or talk about it, just to have them look at this from a kind of macro level, which is what was the perspective that I wanted to get. So anyway, that's kind of how that came about. It was supposed to be just one single movie with 15 interviews and became 66 interviews, and broke off. It got so big it broke off into a 2-parter. So the first part drops January 8th on Apple TV and Amazon, and the second one will probably come out in May.
Well, I've watched the first part, and it really is kind of mind-blowing. And the lineup of guests that you have is pretty breathtaking as well. How did you go about selecting the various different people that you have in this film?
It was kind of like, best way I can describe it is kind of like a virus, where one person will infect you with a bit of knowledge, and you go, wow, that's amazing. And then that person says, but you should really talk to this person. I'm pretty sure it's spreading. And You'd have some people, like there were many people that I went to and they turned me down flat. They're like, I don't want to comment in this arena. And then I would interview someone that was next to them or knew them. And then they would say, no, 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 he's doing something completely different. You should talk to him. And so that's how we got Leslie Kean and a whole bunch of other people to come on board. And so it just built and built. And then, pretty soon I'm looking at 66 interviews and I'm going, wow, this feels like there's a distinctive break between the first and the second one. And without giving too much away, there's a subplot that goes throughout.
Hmm.
That's really fun. And so, yeah, it was like this kind of, he told someone and they told someone and they told someone else. And it just became this whole thing. And then suddenly I got to a place where it was like, all right, I have nothing left to I feel mine in this area. And that's when I went into post-production and went, okay, let's see what the hell we have here. And that took a couple of years just to edit this and put it together in a way that had not been told before.
Well, I like the approach, and you really do cover a lot of ground. One of the things that you explore in the film is a new way of looking at what some of this stuff might be, and you get into some of the theories. I did not expect until I watched the movie that you would get into the possibility that life is just a simulation. And not everyone who thinks about UFOs and all that kind of stuff ever goes to the UFO explanation as being a simulation, but you did it in this film, and I was wondering if you could just share, give us a little sense of why you went there and what the idea might give us in terms of an explanation.
Um, Let me check with the alien. Stand by. Hold on. Okay. So again, what was more fascinating to me wasn't the, tried and true, well, the aliens are from another planet hypothesis. I think what happens is people see these crafts in the air, and the first reaction is, oh, they come from up there. And then they take it the next step further, which is they come from another galaxy, another universe, et cetera, other planet. And I thought, well, if you're traveling, you're probably going to travel in the air. You're not going to take the subway. So I started looking at other possibilities. Jacques Vallée, who has written fantastic books about this, is leaning towards them being dimensional, which the Higgs collider has already proven that we've got 11 dimensions that we know of, and there's going to be more. So that kind of seems to make sense that we'd be occupying the same space. And then we look at like the simulation reality hypothesis. Where we're going with our technology, if you project it out, we are going to be able to do that. I was in the Apple store the other day, which is kind of like computer porn for us geeks. Technology, and I'm there and I look over and I see all these people with these goggles on. And I'm going, holy crap, I want to go over there, but I'm afraid. I mean, I've got like to finish these other projects, and I know that's a rabbit hole that's going to be really hard to struggle out of that. So I think we're going there. The question is, if we are living in a simulated reality, who created it? And oh my God, it's kind of mind-boggling. And we have not just the guy who created the simulation reality hypothesis, Nick Bostrom, but we also have philosopher David Chalmers out of NYU. And David is a brilliant, brilliant philosopher, and he sheds even more light on it. David actually worked on a thesis for essay for the filmmakers of The Matrix and consulted on it. So he gets into that and everything. And yeah, oh my God, it was just like brain candy for me. And so my job became, how do I transfer that to an audience, and how do I show them, oh my God, dude, check this out, this is insane. And then one of the tools that I did use is I pulled in one of my favorite animators who was the animation director for the Oscar-winning documentary Searching for Sugarman, Arvid Steen.
Yeah.
And he took two of the most credible UFO cases and animated them, and we were able to do it so we could look at it like in the Tic Tac incident, where these jet fighters, Top Gun fighters, saw the Tic Tac shaped craft, and I'm actually in the cockpit. You get taken into the cockpit with Dave Fravor, and you're also outside looking at Dave Fravor, with his eyebrows, bulging. What the hell is this? And so it was a great way to get into it visually. And also, I don't take myself serious. I take my work serious, but there's a lot of levity, as you'll see in this documentary. So you don't have to go into it thinking, oh, this is a, hardcore documentary and science and everything. It's fun. It's fun. There's a lot of levity in it, and yeah, it's entertaining. From the score to the animation to the editing and everything. It's a fun ride, I think.
I agree, and I appreciate that approach because a lot of times it's pretty heavy. A lot of these films in the genre, and you do have some fun with it, and you bring up a lot of theories that get you thinking. You mentioned The Matrix. One of the things that I liked in this movie is that you do make references to very well-known science fiction movies. You mentioned The Matrix, but also Close Encounters of the Third Kind is mentioned, and it's kind of implied in the film that maybe some of these films that you assume are just science fiction, maybe some of the ideas from these films came from real life events. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. Encounters is a perfect example. So Spielberg's writing the script. He wants to do a first contact story. He's fascinated by people who have claimed, and the media jumped on it in the 60s with the Interrupted Journey, which is the Barney and Betty Hill story that happened in 1961, I believe. And that story, this black and white interracial couple, are abducted. And they describe the beings with big black eyes and shorter stature. And so that, along with a couple other books, Spielberg was inspired by that for the look of the aliens. And then he came across the book. Again, he had already written a couple of drafts, and they came across J. Allen Hynek, who was the head of Project Blue Book, his own book, which was called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So Spielberg said, hey, I want to use your title, but I also want to bring you on as a consultant, and gave him a cameo also in the climax of the film. So he, pulled him in, and so much of the film was borrowed from what people have claimed and how spiritual the experience is for these people who want to be called experiencers now, not alien abductees. That it started to kind of be, I would say, the first film that was inspired by that, and then that just kind of grew from there. And so some people say, well, people saw these films and that's why they think that these aliens look like that. And it's like, no, people have been describing that for decades, centuries. So anyway, so with Close Encounters, what's cool about it is that we have Douglas Trumbull, who not only did the special effects for Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but he did it for 2001: Space Odyssey and for Blade Runner. Unfortunately, this is Doug Trumbull's last interview. He passed away not long after the interview, so this is actually dedicated to him. Special effects pioneer, just amazing. So, yeah, I think, I think it's always, well, just to give an example, Spielberg announced that he's doing a UFO event film. So it kind of ping pong back and forth, where new UFO reports come out, and then Hollywood says, "Oh, people are into that.
Right.
Let's hit that." And I'm guilty of that. It's like, hell yeah.
Well, it sounds like you've evolved a little bit in your thinking. Like, just tell our listeners a little bit about like what your initial thoughts were. You kind of talked about this a little bit in the beginning, but where you're at right now in terms of your beliefs.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's funny. You start out going in your brain, and it's the ego that does this. I'm going to crack this. I'm going to figure out what it is. They're from the future or from whatever. And you start parking your belief system there. But as your journey goes and you're interviewing more and more people, you start to see other aspects of the phenomenon that you're not even considering, which is like one that isn't in this first one. But what if they travel through the astral plane? Meaning, some people claim that they see dead relatives, and I'm going, okay, so people see ghosts, and we're okay with the idea that people see ghosts. What if they're traveling through that astral plane? I mean, it just goes on and on. So basically, what you learn and what I learned was um, it's none of the above and it's all of the above. So everything kind of has to be considered. And so I got as much as, I learned as much as what I don't know as what I do know. Um, I would say that I'm probably leaning at this point. Um, and again, I've not seen a UFO, so I'm not, this isn't from any
Yeah,
experience
yeah.
I've had. My mother has, but not me. So I kind of feel like, yeah, I think that as you can tell, I'm still wrestling with it. I just think that something is going on that is real. Um, and at this point, it's ridiculous to deny it. And it's ridiculous for the government to do anything but say, yeah, we don't know what the hell these things are.
Well, you couldn't pick a better time to come out with this film, especially with all these stories about drones. Uh, the drones are not in your movie, but as somebody who's really been studying this stuff, what do you make of this current situation? I know it's a little bit different, but in your movie, you do have examples of recent news events where the government and people that were in the military have come out and said that they've seen things that they can't explain. These drones are a little bit different, but what do you make of this current situation?
I don't do drones, man. I only do circle shape. That's a fringe group I don't partake with. No. Okay, so here's some weirdness. Um, I this is November 29th. My girlfriend and I are out on our deck, and it's nighttime, and we look out and we see seven um, lighted objects, lit objects flashing on and off. And so I videotape it 4.5 minutes. And I'm not thinking, much of it. I'm going, oh, that's weird. That's a lot of activity that's going on out there. Probably just, helicopters and drones. I'm next to LAX, but it's not planes because they're not going straight and heading towards LAX. And then December 15th comes and it's like drones, drones, drones. And I'm like, hold on, let me go back and look at that footage. So I look at the footage again and it kind of takes on a different dimension, but it's still prosaic. I mean, I think no matter what, these are still drones. It's just who is flying them.
Hmm.
But I took the footage and cut it up into 3 clips, and I put it on TikTok through my company Captured Pictures, and it blew up. And you can actually see it there if you dig this stuff, and you'll see them flash, um, you know, purple or blue and green and red, and then all of a sudden they light up really bright. And so, you know, I'm, it's a mystery because when I'm a filmmaker and when I go to use a drone, I've got to get permits and everything, and the FFA. I mean, all that stuff is to be signed off. You don't have seven of these things all flying around in one area. As a
Hmm.
filmmaker, you just use one. And so I'm not sure what the hell is going on. And I'm in LA. So it just, and anyway, it's, you know, I will tell you the, the UFO community is all going, oh, we're getting prep right now for disclosure. It's coming.
And for the people in the community, what is the biggest piece of evidence? I mean, is it the government's response? Because there were just so many stories, so many sightings, and these things were going all over sites that you normally can't fly over, nuclear power plants and military zones, and at first they claimed that there was nothing there, but then they had to kind of say, no, it's okay, and it's all nothing to worry about. But it's all very strange. I don't know what to make of it. Why do you think that this is a moment of disclosure, or the community thinks it's a moment of disclosure?
Well, I've wrestled with the term disclosure for a long time. I spoke at Shag Harbor UFO conference about a year ago. And I kind of sat the audience down and I said, what is disclosure to you? What does it look like? And they go, well, we want the technology. And I go, okay, so what are you going to do with that technology? Say we figure out, you know, a way to communicate with them, and they come and they say, hey, here's anti-gravity. Here's how we do that. Well, that's going to be great for transportation. We don't have to clog up the skies with chemtrails and stuff because it's much easier to maneuver around with anti-gravity, except we weaponize everything. So someone's going to get that and start flying people off the planet. So that's not good. we're just not kind of mature enough to do that. And then people will say, well, they need to clean up our environment because it's all jacked up. And I'm like, yes, it is all jacked up, and we caused it. Why do we need a parent to come in and say, all right, kids, get out of the room, we'll clean it up, don't do it again? So my question is, what is disclosure? I think disclosure has been happening for decades, maybe centuries, through experiencers, people who get a chance to see these crafts, and people who claim to have been abducted. So those people are getting it firsthand, and they're probably, like Close Encounters, they're being chosen for maybe that experience. I don't know. But my feeling is the government coming out and saying it's not us and it's not our foes, so we don't know what it is, was a huge step. I mean, at this point, they would look ridiculous if they came out and said, oh, that's nothing, that's this or that. No, we know. And the polls are all saying, there's more people that believe in that narrative than don't. So I think, disclosure, if it's meant to be, it's going to happen. But the question is, are we mature enough to deal with that? Because
Right.
people will, here's an example. Lou Elizondo said to me, who's the guy that broke the Tic Tac footage and leaked it to the New York Times. He said, I go and I would update these generals, and almost half of them would say, thank you so much. You're doing God's work. This is, great. And then there would be a portion of them that would say, they're demons, right? So, so the concern is what's going to happen if they do show up,
Yeah.
because people will take them, whether it's religious fanatics or whatever. It's just not a great, audience, humans as an audience. We're still animals, and, we still can't terraform other planets and stuff. So, it's like getting a sneak peek at the ending of a movie. That's what these aliens give us.
And this movie is a sneak peek because there is a part two. What would you say is the most compelling story that people want to see this film for? A lot of interviews in there, a lot of important information. What do you think is the one thing, like, if people are interested in this subject, why should they watch this movie?
Um, I would say that it's not just the cases like we do the UK's Roswell.
Yeah.
It's called the UK Roswell, which is the Rendlesham Forest case, where you have a security official who goes out in the park next to the UK's Royal Air Force base and sees his craft, and there's two other witnesses, and touches it. And what happens after that is we cover it, and we go more into it in part two, of course, the big tease.
That was pretty
Um,
wild.
yeah, that case gets even stranger. That is really, really compelling. The other case that we cover, the Tic Tac one, which we've heard, on news and stuff before, but again, we're not in the cockpit like we are beforehand. We're covering it.
Yeah.
I judge anything. It's funny because it's like these hearings that have been going on, congressional hearings. I'm like, great, it's terrific. We've heard all this stuff. Give me a chunk, drop it, plunk it down on the table of a artifacts from a UFO. I want to see that metal. I want to see that intelligent design. I want to see if it's off world. I want to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
Until I see that, to me, the most compelling evidence, and I've worked on 20 years on crime shows. So for me, the most compelling evidence is the testimony, right? So when people come in and they're saying, this happened, and my spouse next to me couldn't move. They were paralyzed, and they witnessed this light come in the room, and they saw their spouse literally levitate and be carried out. And this is fantastical, but it's been repeated over and over again. And so the pilots and firsthand experiencers, that to me is highly credible. And we've got a couple mic drops in the first episode, and even more in the second movie, where characters kind of come out of the closet, if you will, that you don't expect, to say that they've also had experiences. So try not to give too much away.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but maybe we can talk again, Dean, when the second one drops. I want to highly recommend to everybody that you check out Alien Perspective. Dean, remind everyone once again where they're going to be able to see this.
Sure. They can see it on Amazon, and they can see it on Apple TV right now if you pre-order it. It is released January 8th and for rent or sale. But I think you're going to want to buy it because the second one that should be coming out in May, you're going to want to refresh. So save yourself the extra rental cost. Um, and then I'm also on social media, which is on Instagram, and that's Dean Alioto. And then I'm also on Facebook and the usual Twitter. I'm on as Dean Alioto as well. That's another great way to release me or to reach me in to see updates.
Well, this is some movie, and I can't wait to see the second one. Dean, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. A lot of good stuff in here, a lot to think about. I hope we'll still be here the next time when your second film comes around. But nice job, very nice job, and hope to speak with you again.
Thank you, Tom. Likewise. Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you both. Of
Thank you.
Thank you for the extra time. I appreciate it.
course.